Afghanistan is seeing a crisis of hunger on a scale never seen before, engulfing the country's youngest.
Watching helplessly as my children cried out of hunger, it felt like someone was cutting me into half with a saw.
Hospitals on the brink as foreign aid dips to the lowest in decades. The US has stopped nearly all funds.
Look inside this room. These are all women who've suffered miscarriages.
Desperate families say they're giving their hungry children sedatives to sleep.
So these are the tablets that she says she gives her youngest child 3 times a day.
The Taliban's harsh restrictions on women compound the problems. The consequences are deadly.
I've literally gone all around this graveyard and I've counted the graves myself.
We travel across the country, uncovering Afghanistan's hidden emergency. A place of striking beauty and of punishing impossible terrain. Badakhshan in Afghanistan's northeast is one of its most picturesque provinces. But it's this landscape that has historically been the biggest hurdle to accessing medical care. This is how we crossed the gushing Kokcha River, using a raft strapped onto a boat as a bridge.
We've pretty much been off-roading throughout. As a healthy person in a good vehicle, I found this journey difficult. Now, imagine if you were ill or a pregnant woman, or if you couldn't even afford decent transportation.
This is the only way now for women in many parts of Badakhshan to get to a medical facility. It's because US aid cuts shut down hundreds of clinics across Afghanistan. We're in Chaugani village.
We've come to the clinic in the village which was closed down. It doesn't look like much, but it was a lifeline for thousands of people, not just in this village, but in 8 other villages as well. It was the only medical facility that they had access to. More than 400 such centers have closed down across Afghanistan after the US cut aid.
These clinics were set up during the tenure of the Western-backed government before the Taliban takeover. But the progress made saving women and children is fast unraveling. The impact of the closure of the clinics, silent but staggering. The younger children in this family were born in the clinic. But 5-month-old Karima was born right here in this room. Her mother, Medamo, died shortly after delivery. This is Medamo's father, Ahmed Khan. He says they watched helplessly as she bled to death.
She was a piece of our hearts. It's very painful. If the clinic had been open, she might have survived. And even if she had died, we would not have had regrets knowing the doctors tried their best. America did this to us.
Are your other children born in the clinic?
We go to another home in the village where we're told of another unrecorded death. 4 months ago, Bahisa's baby girl died soon after she was born. Her other children were delivered in the clinic. It was terrifying to give birth at home, Bahisa says.
In the clinic, we had a midwife, injections and medicines. At home, I had nothing to kill the pain. It was unbearable. I felt like life was leaving my body.
Baby Fakiha was named just before she was buried. Basira Ahmadi worked as the midwife at the clinic.
Every day people knock on my door saying, please open the clinic again. But I don't have the right to do that. Some give birth in front of the clinic, and many children and mothers are dying.
In our quest to document more evidence of the impact of aid cuts, we drove to another district. When Abdul Wakil's wife went into labour 4 months ago, he spent more than he could afford to take her to the clinic in a car, not knowing it had closed. On the way back, his wife Shahnaz gave birth in the car. She and their baby both died. Abdul took us to his wife Shahnaz's grave. It's where he brings his young children, 2-year-old Medina and her brother Faisal, when they ask about their mother.
We had a hard life, but we were living it together. I was always happy when I was with her. Now I have no one.
Villagers gathered around us, telling us of more maternal deaths.
Daulat Begi Jawar. So we've just been told that all of these 3 graves are of women who died in childbirth just a few months ago. Jawhar, Daulat Begi, Shahnaz.
There's no certainty they would have survived in a clinic, but without it, they had no chance. Not far away, we meet another bereaved family. Sanaullah and his elder brother Saifullah lost their mother Guljan 3 months ago. Their father Khan Muhammad told us the baby boy she delivered also died 3 days later. He said Guljan had been going to the clinic for checkups during the early months of her pregnancy, but then it closed down.
No one can give my children the love that a mother can. They are sad and tired all the time. And not a moment passes that I don't miss my wife. We had a very sweet life together, filled with love.
For families like Khan Muhammad's, Badakhshan's main public hospital in its capital, Faizabad, is simply out of reach. And the journey so bumpy, it could be dangerous. We were shown a horrific photo of a newborn baby whose neck snapped on the road to the hospital. But throngs of men, desperate to save their wives and babies, still try to make it here.
These are the scenes of chaos that we're witnessing at the gynecological ward of the Badakhshan Provincial Hospital, because centres in district and remote areas have shut down, which means room after room here is really overwhelmed. And perhaps the most shocking thing that I've seen is look inside this room. These are all women who've suffered miscarriages. And right after that, they don't even have one bed on which they can recover and recuperate.
And even this hospital is facing sharp budget cuts, as much as 70% lower than what they had 3 years ago. Zora Shevan told us this is the 3rd time she suffered a miscarriage.
I was bleeding severely and didn't even have a place to sit. It was really hard. By the time a bed is free, a woman could die bleeding.
And at the current rate, maternal deaths recorded here are set to increase by as much as 50% this year. Newborn deaths have already surged by roughly 1/3 in recent months. This baby, not named yet, but called Asma after her mother, suffered asphyxia and requires oxygen to breathe. The nurse told us she doesn't know if she'll make it. The baby's mother looks on. The medics are exhausted. Head midwife Razia Hanifi says she often works 36 hours at a stretch.
In the 20 years that I have been doing this job, this year is the toughest. We have a shortage of resources and of personnel, and a lot of newborn babies are coming here with asphyxia. We can maybe save 1 out of 10.
No reinforcements are coming to help them. Three years ago, higher education, including medical studies, were banned for women by the Taliban government.
And in another crushing blow, late last year, the Supreme Leader also banned training for midwives and nurses. We're on our way to meet 2 students who were enrolled in courses when they were shut down. We have to meet them at a discreet location, and they can't be identified for their own safety.
The women had started university, but when that was closed down, they told me they began nursing and midwife training because it was the only path left to get an education.
When that was also banned, I became depressed. I was crying day and night, and I was not able to eat. It's a painful situation.
The Taliban government spokesman in Afghanistan didn't agree to speak to us. So I questioned their Doha-based official, Suhail Shaheen.
You've said that humanitarian needs should not be politicized, but it is political decisions taken by your own leadership, which means that there are going to be no female doctors, midwives, nurses. You're denying the right to access health to half your population. Isn't that a bit hypocritical?
It is our internal issue. These are our issues. How to handle them, how to consider them, how to take decisions. But this is something our internal, of course, that is up to the leadership.
The US has justified the aid cuts, saying that millions of dollars were actually being siphoned off and enriching your government. How do you respond to that allegation?
No, that is not true. The aids were given to the United Nations. They identify who need them, and they distribute themselves, not the government. Government is not involved.
You've now been the government in Afghanistan for 4 years. You can't rely on aid forever. So what are you doing as a government to provide for your people?
Economic projects and the progress made during the past 4 years have not been made during the 20 years of foreign occupation. I can count some of them, like the Kushtipa Canal, the highway from Kabul to Kandahar and to Herat, the railway lines from Afghanistan to Iran.
I appreciate you're talking about infrastructure projects, roads, railways, but there is an unprecedented crisis of hunger. So what is your government doing to help those people on the ground who are not going to survive? They're not going to survive unless you're able to help them.
Those who are facing malnutrition, those who are facing hunger, it's because of the sanction, because of this aid cuts by international organizations. It is not because of the government.
For Afghanistan's women, their right to health and life itself is at risk. The storm of crises hitting this country also includes a severe drought, flash floods in some provinces, and the recent earthquake. It's further compounded by the forced return of more than 2 million people from neighbouring Pakistan and Iran. This is the Islam Kala border in Afghanistan's western Herat province, the first point of entry for masses who've been deported from Iran over the past few months.
These are people who've just arrived from Iran. You can see literally all their belongings being carried on wheelbarrows, lives that were uprooted abruptly. It's blazing hot. We constantly have dust storms here, and this is what they're arriving into. And in this compound then they will be processed by the Taliban government. It's giving them some cash handouts, but it's barely anything, and it says it's providing transport to the districts and provinces that they want to go to. But really, most of them do not know what kind of life they're coming back to here.
Khadija Ibrahimi and her family went to Iran after the Taliban takeover. She says her mother and brother earned a living working as construction labourers while she took care of her elderly, paralysed father, Muhammad Wali.
It's very difficult because we were kicked out by force. They didn't give us time to collect our wages. Now we have come to Afghanistan, but our home in our province was washed away by floods.
Many do not have a home to return to for other reasons. Bas Muhammad Bakhtiari went to Iran more than 30 years ago because of the war raging in Afghanistan. His children were born and raised there. They don't know the country they've been sent to. The collective impact of these crises is borne by the countries most vulnerable. Hunger and disease are ravaging Afghanistan's children on a scale never seen before. Back in Badakhshan Hospital's malnutrition ward, all around us were families who've spent whatever little they have to bring their babies here. Musleha is 5 months old, suffering from measles and malnutrition. Her mother Karima told us she's hardly opened her eyes in the past few days.
She's in pain and I don't know what to do. We are poor and don't have access to nutritious food. Some days we go hungry. That's why she is in this state.
A day after we visited the hospital, Musleha died. Zamira has already lost one baby. This is her second child, Sana. She has malnutrition, acute diarrhea, and a cleft lip. At 3 months, Sana is the youngest baby here.
I'm afraid that this child might also die. I'm so tired of this life. It's not worth living.
As Zamira spoke, Sana's hands and feet turned blue. Her tiny heart wasn't pumping enough blood. A nurse put her on oxygen. A week later, Sana also died. Sharing one bed were twins, Mazian and Mutehra. They also had measles and malnutrition and were half the weight they should have been at 18 months. In the hours that followed our visit, Mutehra became critical, and 2 days later, she died. This isn't the first time we've documented child deaths from malnutrition, but what we've seen this time is without precedent. 3 children from one hospital room: Mutehra, Musleha, Sana, the latest casualties of Afghanistan's crisis of hunger. Their deaths are registered. But outside the walls of the hospital, the wave of mortality engulfing the country's youngest is silent, unrecorded. In the western province of Herat, Ghulam Muhiddin and his wife Nazo take us to the graves of the 3 babies they lost in the past 2 years. The youngest just 3 months ago. They break walnut shells for a living and have had no support from anyone. Not their government, not NGOs.
Can you imagine how painful it's been for me to lose 3 children? 1 minute there's a baby in your arms, the next minute they are empty. I would hope every day that angels would somehow put my babies back in our home.
Watching helplessly as my children cried out of hunger, it felt like my body was erupting in flames. It felt like someone was cutting me into half with a saw, from my head to my feet.
So I've literally gone all around this graveyard and I've counted the graves myself because there's no one here who's keeping any records, and it's really a staggering sight. 2 out of every 3 graves are of children. And we've been speaking to locals here. They've been telling us that this graveyard is only about 2 to 3 years old. This is not a specific graveyard for children. They've told us that the main cause of death, they believe, is hunger and malnutrition. And in the settlement nearby, families want to show us the suffering inside their homes. 1-year-old Rafiullah can barely hold himself up. His mother, Hanifa, has no money to make the journey to a clinic to treat him. She says she feeds him bread soaked in water. A man offered Hanifa a large sum of money as dowry for 7-year-old Satara, but she turned him down. There are many days when this family doesn't eat. To sedate a hungry Rafiullah so that he sleeps, Hanifa told us she gives him these medicines. So these are the tablets that she says she gives her youngest child 3 times a day, the 1-year-old child. They're both anti-anxiety medicines, but they're available at the cost of 1 strip would be the same cost as 1 piece of bread.
I feel suffocated and like I should kill my children and myself. I feel so guilty that my children are going hungry and I can't do much.
This is one of millions of pleas for help in Afghanistan, most of them unseen, unheard. NGOs say they are fast running out of money. And as winter approaches, millions of lives are at risk. It is hard to overstate the urgency of the disaster unfolding in Afghanistan.